looking for something. A new way, a new understanding, a connection, some comfort. You've got questions, and Light on Living puts the spotlight on all the answers so you can shine. Lift and lighten the load of life's challenges and learn simple and easy ways to live a healthy, happy life. You'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you. You're invited to hear new, see different, and feel more as Lisa shines the light on living.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Light on Living. I'm Light Coach Lisa, holistic nutritionist and life coach, helping to lighten the load of life's challenges. Well, there's one thing we don't want to have lightened is our wallets or our bank accounts. So today is about money, 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 and all the ups and downs and ins and outs and credits and debits that we can think of. And more importantly, it's about how to take your gift and your passion and your time and energy and how to actually make money with that. And what about these blocks? Like, what is blocking us from our financial freedom and what we think about money? So I have a really awesome guest to share with us today. We've actually had her on the show before. It is Jennifer Noel Taylor, and she is the author of Spiritual and Broke. And that's a big title of a book because I think everybody's ears just perks right up. So first of all, welcome, Jennifer. I'm so happy to have you again on the show. You're just a lovely guest.
Oh, great. Well, thanks so much for having me, and aloha from Hawaii.
Woohoo! Well, that's an awesome place that makes me feel rich and abundant just hearing that. Well, this is I'm glad that we're getting to do a second show because, first of all, it's kind of like gives me anyways, a benchmark to say in your, let's call it measuring, in your perception and measuring about where people even were a couple months ago to now, do you think that something has shifted at all, like in a good way with being spiritual and broke or spiritual and rich or all those things?
No. I think that overall the space right now is a place where people are stepping into their power. I think like a lot of the chaos that's going around in the world is actually an invitation, let's say, to step into our power.
Oh, I like that actually. Oh my goodness. So if somebody's spiritual and broke, could that because we just haven't stepped into the power? Like that's telling us to do that?
I believe that any kind of challenge in life, whether it's money or whatever else, relationship problems, health problems, are actually, they're not really, punishment on any level or anything like that. It's actually an opportunity from, let's say, the all that is or God or spirit or whatever you call it to say, to step into our greatness. It just appears as kind of a problem, but I don't believe that's a problem. It's actually an opportunity.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You know what? I love that you said that it's not a punishment because you're right. How many times do we say, "What am I doing wrong?" or "I shouldn't have done this." It's a constant judgment, and you're right. We are looking at it kind of like a punishment. Like, why do I have to be doing it? Why am I going through this?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when you're suffering, the first thing people do is they cry out and say, "Why me? Why me, God? Why do I have to go through this punishment or hell as like a bad person?" Or that reaction of suffering is so common. Why me?
Yes, why me? And is that perhaps the conversation that we should be having? Like the one actually, what if we spun the why me around? Like, yay! Why me? Why an opportunity?
I think it's hard. Okay, so I think it's really hard because we're looking at all this negative stuff happening in the world right now, and I think it's really heart-wrenching, from the school shootings to everything in life that's really bad and heart-wrenching. And like there's two ways to really look at that. I feel like one is to just feel like a victim and wallow in this self-misery. And that's one way, and a lot of people do that, and like I'm tempted to do that a lot of times when something negative happens, is to sit there and wallow in misery, and that's definitely an option. I feel like, and it's okay if that's what you want to do. But I feel like actually a lot of these things that happen are really an opportunity for growth, both globally and individually. So I think one of the things I'll give you an example. So these school shootings, which are heart-wrenching and horrific and hellish, I feel like can be taken two ways. One is we're just going to always be victims and this is just happening. We have to fear our lives. The other way we can say is this is actually an opportunity for global change on how we view guns and how we view violence and how can we shift the energy to prevent this. So I think that if we can take these really horrible, heart-wrenching things and view them as an opportunity for growth and change, that's where we can step into our greatness.
That's interesting that you chose such a that's a big one. That's a big one example you chose. And I think why I love that you actually went that deep and that big right away and using the word global in how you spoke, because it does take a lot of people to get behind something to make a bigger change.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so and saying that, so if there's a lot of people going through economic crisis or countries going through things, it's so many more people are affected. So you're right, the opportunity then becomes bigger because we can build bigger support system.
We can make a change that's probably necessary, a higher vibration. So ultimately, like our whole planetary experience, I think, is to increase and continue to increase our energy and vibration. And so one of the things is these challenges happen as that opportunity to say, hey, this isn't working anymore. You know, this our structure, let's say, or our gun laws, or even how we treat children. This isn't working anymore. We need to shift. And sometimes this negative stuff comes to a head to really, let's say, make that change.
Again, I love that you use the word structure. You're right, because we're looking at something going, wow, like the structure of whatever we're doing isn't supporting the goal that we really want. And in that mode of structure, let's say somebody really is just following their passion and they're feeling spiritual, they're feeling very consciously connected, and they're like, but I am broke, so is the structure that I can't live my dream? I can't do what I want to do. I have to go get a job somewhere else doing something else. Or how far should we go when we're looking at the structure?
I think it's really tempting when you're spiritual and broke, like I was, to think the idea of getting a real job seems like the answer.
Yeah.
I had that many times. I'm like, well, this energy healing's for the birds. I should just go back to my old job, which actually pays. That kind of thinking, I think, is really common and tempting. Yeah. Because it's easier just to go get a job. The downside is that when you have a job that you don't really resonate with, that doesn't inspire you, it feels like a prison sentence. Mm-hmm. That you're stuck here. You're stuck in your cubicle for the next 8 hours, and it's counting down till lunchtime when you can have your hour of freedom. I mean, I felt like that. I felt like my job was a prison sentence, and it wasn't. I had great bosses and everything. I didn't like to work, and so that's the downside. So I feel like the financial, being broke, struggling to pay the bills, yet following your passion, the financial part is actually an opportunity for growth. Again, here's my theme. So when you're struggling with money, instead of saying, well, I should just go get a real job, it's like looking at what energy you're projecting into the world that creates this financial struggle. And that's how I like to address it. Yeah.
Yeah, the energy you put in the world. I had to laugh because I was thinking of if you're in a job that you don't like and you're not aligned with what, as you're describing, it's now you're spiritually broke, not spiritual and broke. Yeah. But let's talk about that for a second, because now what's coming up for me now is blocks. Like, okay, so because you're saying, okay, this is I'm broke. Let's say I'm broke, and this is an opportunity for me. Is there a step, well, that's step one. Is there a step two, like that would fall naturally? Like, do we start saying, okay, I'm broke. Here's an opportunity. What are my blocks? Or like, is there a different step that we should take after that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because obviously you don't want to be broke. So again, this is an opportunity. So here's the first step I took, and it actually was a big wake-up call. Ooh. But the first step I think that we need to take is, so do we believe in the law of attraction or not? And that's a question to ask yourself. Do you believe that you create your reality or not? And I was guilty of what I call selective ownership, meaning that I felt like we create our reality sometimes, but sometimes we don't. So it's not really a law. It's kind of a selective law. I call it selective ownership, meaning I was willing to own pieces of my life, but not everything. And that to me, I wasn't willing to own my money situation. I was willing to own my health and say, yeah, I create my health and I'm willing to take responsibility when it comes to money. That's God's job. You know, I'm doing my work and now I'm just supposed to somehow be rewarded with money. I was in that mindset for a long time, and then I felt like a victim to my money because I wasn't taking, I didn't believe I created my credit card debt.
When you're saying that, like you didn't believe that you created your credit card debt, is that more just like, how are you disassociating from it?
I believe that I was a victim to my mission. I was a martyr for the cause. And because I didn't have enough money to support myself, I was going into debt to try to, make ends meet. Because I believe that I'm a victim here. I'm a martyr for the cause. I'm doing what God told me to do on my life purpose. And yet I'm really struggling with money. So this is the universe's fault. The universe is supposed to bring me money.
Right. That's a big one. So, okay, wait. How did you step out of that thinking?
I had a huge wake-up call. It happened in the back of a police car, actually. So sometimes we get these huge traumas to wake us up, I believe.
Yeah.
And what happened was I was a victim of a crime involving a sexual assault, and so I had to get transported to the rape trauma center. So I was sitting in the back of the police car, just like, oh my God, like what? This is a horrible nightmare. And I was in a state of shock. I was just not really paying attention, but my ears like perked up when I heard the officer say, we're now transporting the victim to the rape trauma center. And my ears perked up because inside I was going, are you crazy? Like, I'm a spiritual healer and leader and entrepreneur. And I'm, here I am being labeled as a victim. This is preposterous. Like I'm too good for this type of attitude. I'm like, this is silly. Like, I shouldn't even be here right now. This is horrible. This is ridiculous. Who manifests this crap? As a spiritual leader. Like, and then I thought about that, the word victim, it just bothered me. And I thought about that and I looked at my life and I said, you know what though? I am playing a victim. I mean, I'm being a victim to my money. I'm playing a victim in certain areas. I'm a victim of all these unavailable men. Like, I actually am playing the role of a victim. And that wake-up call to realize that being labeled as a victim is something that I didn't want to be anymore. Yeah. I don't want to be a victim anymore. That was a huge wake-up call, and I'm hoping other people don't have to go through that to realize that you don't have to be a victim to anything in your life.
Right. I love that actually. By you hearing that and them calling you that, like identifying you as one, that you actually were honoring yourself and saying that does not resonate with me. And even if it did, it resonated because you were aware that that's what you had created in your life, but that you no longer, like that's a big turnaround. Like just to say, oh my God, I have been, but I don't want to be, so I'm not going to be anymore.
It was a huge thing because the victim was almost like the silent killer. I didn't even realize how much I was being a victim. Right. And I was playing this victim in my life. I was a martyr for my cause. I was a victim of men and all these unavailable men, and I was just moping through life on certain aspects. And yet at the same time, I was talking about the law of attraction, how we create our reality, and I was a spiritual leader in the field of energy medicine. And those two things really, like, I was almost hypocritical because, those two things are hard to reconcile. So I'm like, wow, I'm being a hypocrite right now by living part of my life as a victim, yet talking about the law of attraction, how we create our reality. So I got to resolve this internally and get out of my hypocritical mentality here and leave the victim consciousness behind.
So in that moment there, realizing that and having that, and then now you actually have to go through with the rest of the evening, dealing with the circumstances at hand. Did you get up the next morning and did you just feel differently, or was it step by step?
It was actually more of a struggle after that because it was almost like giving up some massive addiction because I struggled with back and forth with, well, do we really create a reality or not? I mean, is this law of attraction real? Because, my thought was, well, if we create a reality, then why would I create that? Right. Or why would I create this $35,000 of credit card debt that I can't pay off, or a business that's constantly going out of business? I mean, why would I create all this stuff? I really struggled with the law of attraction. How far does that law of attraction go? Is it really real, or is it just some kind of fairy tale that we make up? And I wrestled with that for years.
Oh my God, years.
I went through every single spiritual healer you could possibly imagine, trying to find the answer to why do bad things happen to good people? Like, why would I create this horrible thing? And at the end of my, self-examination, going through all these spiritual healers, I realized that, yes, indeed, I did create. I do create everything. And it was really hard to accept that.
And do things turn around for you? Because if you, years is a lot of time. So in that time of you exploring and self-examining and really trying to take ownership, but not quite sure what you're taking ownership of, because now you're actually putting your own beliefs under the microscope. And can you say now in your life that, what would you say? Do you believe that we created that? Did you believe that?
I believe that now. I believe that we create everything. No exceptions, that the law of attraction is real, that there are no exceptions, that we create everything. And when I say we, it doesn't mean that the human side, like the mind, is just the responsible party. It means that our energy and essence, like what's going on in our heart and our soul and our life path, but we actually create everything. And the moment I finally really accepted that, that's when everything started to turn around, including my money situation, and especially the money situation, because I finally said, look, I created my money situation, and I'm 100% responsible for this, and I have now the power to turn it around.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that note, we're going to head into a short commercial break, but let's dive into, when we come back, to the blocks that are keeping us, really, like what you said, self-examination, and it's not just in our mind, but it's in our whole essence in our body. When we come back, we're going to help so many people.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Welcome back to The Cat Show. Up next, we have Nico. Nico is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right. A group known especially for their sunspot sleeping, ball chasing, leg rubbing, and of course, companionship. Just look how she struts.
It's like she owns the place.
And see how she curls up and cuddles her person.
The pitch on her purring is simply perfect.
Nice one.
Fantastic cat. But really the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Nico is to meet one.
Visit theshelterpetproject.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with spiritual healer and author of Spiritual and Broke, Jennifer Noel Taylor, and I'm loving the self-examination and the responsibility taking, and I'm so excited to keep diving in on. Okay, so we've got that. Yes, we can definitely play small, play victims, and still be even thinking and understanding that we create what we have. We're manifesting, law of attraction, all that, but where does it come up that we've blocked ourselves? And when I say blocked, I don't mean like, yes, we're playing victim and things like that, but what are some of the blocks that might be coming up for people for abundance?
Okay, so that's a great question. So once you're willing to accept that, yes, this is your creation, that actually, to me, when I finally accepted that, it started to turn things around right away, because I was willing to take responsibility. However, then there's some other blocks that I noticed. And this is really about, again, like listening to your heart and your guidance, because it's different for everyone. But here's some of the common ones that I've noticed, other than the victim one. And one is, so if you think about money is a product of how much you keep, right? So everyone makes some money, and everyone spends money. And so financial security is really just spending less than you earn. Now, so on one level, it sounds really simple, but it's super hard to do that. And I think one of the reasons is, let's look at what I had to look at first was my spending habits. And I noticed this is really common, that a lot of people have a spending habit that doesn't necessarily serve them, or maybe multiple spending habits that don't necessarily serve their values or their highest good. Okay. And one of my favorite books on this topic, called Your Money or Your Life, has a term for this called Gazinga's pen, which is that thing you spend money on that's just out of habit, but you don't really need or want, really, from a deep level. And it's really interesting because everyone has them. I have a friend who their spending habit is electronics, like sound equipment and things to put on shows or whatever. Right. Or computer electronics. It's just they spend inordinate amounts of money on this. For me, it was clothes and home decorating items, and just overspending on makeup and things like that. And I realized that what I was really seeking through my spending habits was approval of other people.
Okay. Walk us through that one.
Yeah. So, for example, when I was overspending money on makeup, for example, I personally, like the real me, I'm not a huge fan of makeup, like for me personally. But I was just I would be late at night just buying another concealer or foundation or something, just all the time. It was constant, like thousands of dollars of makeup that I never wore. And I was looking at this and I was examining myself. It's like, why am I buying all this stuff? Like when I really got honest with myself. And my response was, wow, like I want to be someone I'm not. I want the approval of other people. And I think like somehow if I'm a 40-something-year-old woman, if I leave the house without makeup, I'm somehow not going to get the approval of other people, because I was brought up in an environment where you're supposed to be made up before you leave the house. Right. And so I really examined that and said, okay, I don't really want to buy makeup, but I'm seeking the approval of other people, and that's why I'm buying it, and I never use it. So it was these things I realized I was looking, as the song says, I was looking for love in all the wrong places.
Well, that's actually so interesting that you took not just the actual bank account, like up or down, not just the numbers, I made this much, I spent this much, but you took what am I spending my money on and what am I getting from that. So that's big.
Yeah. One of the big things is a moment of self-reflection, because I think a lot of us, we feel lonely or unfulfilled or some negative emotion, and there's two things I think we do in response. One is eat chocolate or some other comfort food, right. which I do, and then the other one is spend money trying to fulfill this feelings of emptiness or loneliness.
Yeah,
and yeah.
I was going to say, what's funny? One of the things I had to stop. I just had to stop, and I mean, I can validate and justify all I want, but I was addicted. I think many people are, especially Well, in any field, I was addicted to buying courses, like just mini courses or self-help courses or, I learned how to do Reiki courses or this or that, like just so many courses. Like, and at first I was like, well, no, it's because I love learning. But really, maybe what it was is I wasn't thinking I had enough tools. I wasn't good enough maybe yet until I got this course or that course. So now that you're having me walk through this, like I'm thinking, okay, what did I spend? Because I stopped, and it was more about acknowledging that you are enough and you do have enough. And if there is something that really comes up, like if you really needed a foundation or a powder, right? you didn't forbid yourself to buy makeup again. You just had a realization.
Yeah, my realization is, does this actually bring me joy? Like, what I'm about to spend money on actually bring me joy? Or am I spending this on some sort of obligation or some other motivation other than just pure inspiration? So, like for courses, for example, yeah, I've done this too. I even have forced myself to go to courses I didn't even want to go to because I felt like somehow I had to be worthy or to provide a good service or something like that. Right. So I sign up for a course and I feel like bored out of my mind after I paid like $1,000 for this course. I'm like, why did I sign up for this? I'm so bored, but somehow I just wanted the credential.
Yes.
And I have other, it's funny, I have other friends who've done this. They sign up for a course. They don't really want to be there, but they think they have to.
Right. Yes. And I love that you brought that up. It's like, so if everybody were to think right now, like, go, what is it they are spending on, and why do they think they even have to have that? And that's a great question to even find out some of the things. So that was one of them. Well, that's two, the victimhood, and then the other thing. And there's also some other blocks that people are having around it.
Yeah. So
there's some others.
Some of the others. So yeah, the first one is really looking at your spending because I know so many people who are struggling and yet still spending money on stuff that doesn't really inspire them. And I've seen this, pretty, and within myself and a lot of other people. So looking at, does this really inspire me? Do I really love this? So that's one block. Okay. The other one that I've noticed is how people earn money. Oh. And this is a big one. So the block around this is usually self-worth stuff. So people feel that they're unworthy of charging money for sessions or for their healing work or for whatever they're doing.
It's a big one, actually. I'm going to say that is
huge.
Huge.
Huge. So, and, one of the examples is, sometimes people say, well, I'm charging, $30 for an hour session or something like that. And it's not enough. It's really not enough to make ends meet. And yet, so this hesitancy of charging money for whatever you're offering is really big, especially in the healing field.
So how does that come to self-worth? So, because I really want to break this down even further for people. So let's say, okay, so me, my nutritionist, that I book a session and I charge X amount of dollars, but then I feel like, oh my gosh, I have that hesitant, feeling of I don't want to give them the invoice, or I don't want to book them again because I think, oh my God, I don't think they can afford 2 sessions in a month, or so. But I feel like my self-worth is good, but is it maybe not?
Maybe I'm using too broad of a category. I feel like whenever you're questioning what you're charging people, it's because you generally feel like you're not providing value.
Oh.
Because we think like, I shouldn't be charging this client $100 because I'm not providing $100 of value.
Right.
In our mind, right? And I think that's the linkage, feeling like somehow, and that also leads to, I need this credential before I can charge this, or I need this credential before I can charge that, or my time's not valuable, it's not worth $100. But the fear that we're not actually providing any value to our clients is, I think, this rampant fear and then this hesitancy to charge. Because if something's infinitely valuable, we have no problem charging money for it. Like a car, for example. A car runs like $30,000. Everyone sees the value of a car for $30,000, so there's no qualms. Like, you don't go to the car dealership and say, well, I'll give you $2,000 for this car because that's all it's worth. We don't do that. Right. But we do that to ourselves. we provide this precious service, and yet we're hesitant to charge $100 for that hour.
Do you think that people have a different view on services versus product? Because you take that example, a car, right? And then take a healing session. Very two different, like one you can see, touch, feel, get in, do stuff, and then the other, it's like, it's not wishy-washy, and I don't mean that, but sometimes it's hard. Like one day a person who received a healing session might say, oh my gosh, I had such a great healing session, I feel so amazing, but then the next day they go, oh, my life still sucks and I don't feel healed. And now do you think there's a little bit anything to do with a product versus a service in that worth?
Well, let's take a look at that. So I'm going to give an example of, because I think you bring up a great point. So let's look at health, because this one, a lot of people struggle with health. So let's look at the difference between going to a doctor versus going to an energy healer or a coach. So if you go to a doctor and let's say, let me strike at the heart of this, let's say it's cancer. Mm-hmm. You go to a doctor, what do? Generally, the recommendation is surgery and chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. Now, it's well known that a lot of people who go through chemo end up having their cancer again. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty decent statistic. Mm-hmm. Yet now, this time, the cancer is fatal. And this is well known, I mean, because the chemotherapy may kill it for a while, but it comes back. Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing that I think is interesting about this and also heartbreaking is, why did the cancer come back? And this is the intangible part that I think is really more important than the cancer itself, to understand, well, what made that come back? Because the chemotherapy or a drug may have quelled the symptoms for a while, but the actual core of the problem was never resolved. Right. Whereas if you go to a healer, where you work with the energy or emotion, a lot of times you can get to the core of the problem where it doesn't come back. So on one level, chemotherapy and surgery is more tangible. Yes. They're more tangible treatments. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if we look at long-term statistics, they're not successful. Whereas if you look at going to and getting to the root cause, it may take longer, it's less tangible, but once you get to the root cause of something, you don't have to deal with it again. I love that you said that. Right? Yes, and I'm kind of thinking, I love that word right there. If this can help anybody, is I'm going to highlight the word you use, is successful. And that's really cool, because right now, anybody wondering, like, did I provide them enough value? Because that's what you said, and I love that. And you provided enough value if the service was successful. Is that fair to say? And success, over time, success may not even mean that, it means different things to different people. Yes. Yes. But I feel that when you do, so for all here for self-growth and spiritual growth, which I believe, that's my premise, then once you get to the bottom of a quote-unquote lesson, you don't have to deal with it again. Right. So I believe, like, cancer, for example, is an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to understand yourself on a deeper level, to understand your spirit on a deeper level. It's not an opportunity to just go and get chemotherapy. It's actually a huge opportunity for understanding. And a healer, a coach, can help you delve into that realm and understand yourself more fully. And a lot of times, like, we have seen symptoms go away when people, like, understand their emotional energy behind it. There is. I don't know if this is going to be an exact part of why I'm bringing this up, but it's so funny. I'm a very healthy person. I don't really have any, aches and pains and injuries and everything that's, regular or anything. And my knee suddenly, for real knee, I was like, oh my God, I can't even bend it. I couldn't even walk on it. I was like, oh my God, what's happened? Like, at first thing I thought, did I just suddenly get arthritis? Did it just show up, or something, or maybe I did bang it and don't remember, because it was brutal, and it was 2 days, 3 days. But what happened was I sat with myself, literally, and I was putting my hand on my knee, and I was like, okay, knees, support, joints, movement. And I was really struggling with making some decisions, and I couldn't tap into my heart enough to make a decision. So I think I manifested that knee pain
until I made some decisions, right? And I woke up, and this has just happened, so it's very fresh in my mind. I woke up today. It was yesterday, one way, or today. I can't remember which one now. And I went, does it hurt? And I almost wanted it to hurt to like prove that I didn't fix it because of it. You know, it was like, do emotions play that big a role? Do emotions really play that much in my bank account? Do emotions really play a role, whether I believe I'm, successful or gain success or attract clients or lose clients? And I don't know, it just keeps showing up that it really does.
It's actually, so Einstein said everything is energy. So you are a vibrational match for everything in your life, what you attract into your life, right? It's hard to believe, but really what we're here to do isn't to try to just force outside circumstances to change, which I believe, and I know this is total hearsay, but I believe chemotherapy and surgery are trying to force outside circumstances to change. Whereas what we really are here for is to understand what within us, our spirit, our energy and essence, our heart, basically, created this in the first place.
Yeah.
And that to me is, it's so funny that coaches and healers feel like they're not providing any value, where what they're doing is actually precious, because they're helping people understand their energy that they're projecting into the world. And so financial stuff is actually just a result of your frequency. Like your bank account is just a match for your frequency of what you're projecting into the world. So when you don't have any money, it's actually an imbalance within you that's creating that. And same with health stuff. It's like what within you is creating this imbalance. And when people start to really own that, it's really their energy, for one. And then what the blocks are, and then correct those. And so we touched on a few, but that's where things start to shift for real.
I love that you use the word precious. And because I think it's like a precious stone, right? Like that's so valuable that we call it like a precious stone, and we hold as precious. So I do love that you use that word. Are there some kind of, do you have a personal one that you use, or something like an affirmation or words or a belief that we can actually start saying to help heighten and elevate that vibration, just to put us into that space of ownership and self-worth and all that stuff? I love affirmations, but I actually believe, like, if there is a problem, like let's say financial, to start to really use that to understand yourself. So rather than just an affirmation, like if you're in pain, to unravel that within. So, for example, if with the debt thing, creating that debt, it's because I was looking outside of myself for fulfillment and spending money to do that. And I think everyone who has debt and feels broke, there's something within that's just creating that frequency of energy that's making it impossible to shift their money. And that's looking within your heart. And I believe that listening to your heart is the most, the best affirmation you can do, because you're not affirming, you're actually listening to, like, what's actually going on with me. And that's scary sometimes, because sometimes you see stuff in yourself you're like, you don't want to really admit. And just becoming clean with yourself, like, wow, okay, I admit I'm buying makeup because I want other people's approval, you know. I have $1,000 worth of it in there, or whatever it is, to really look at that, because that's what's creating the problem. I love it. Actually, I just realized, I just heard it for the first time, that the word, when you say I'm broke, that actually is like saying I'm broken. And I love that you're directing us to look at the heart, because if you get a broken heart, right? So maybe broke, that's why we even call it broke. I don't know, but I don't know where the term broke came from, like money-wise, but because something is broken. And your heart is broken because it is something about, it's sad a little bit. You feel that there's reasons why we're doing this. And you know, in Spiritual and Broke, you've had that book out now for how long?
I'm still working on it, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Done.
Yes,
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's just,
we're waiting for that one. We want that book. What can a person expect? Like, I'm just, you know what? It's just such a big area, and so many people, feel this way and go through it. What will the book, if they read it, what will they get from it? How can it? Is it instructional or helpful? Like, how will they get?
One of my biggest purposes of writing this book is that if you only take away one thing from this book, is to step out of the victim consciousness.
Yeah.
From an energy standpoint, not just an intellectual standpoint, but I tell my story in gory detail about why I manifested what I did and this personal journey, with the hopes that other people can say, yes, I'm ready to step into my power now. And that's one of my main purposes of the book, because there's a lot of books out there on budgets and financial planning and everything else, but I am really into what's going on internally that creates the problem in the first place, and if people can just start stepping into their power. And one of the things that I've noticed with a lot of people who are broke is that there's some story they're telling themselves that's a very disempowering and sad story. And it could be that they feel worthless. They feel that they're a victim of the system. They feel like God is imposing on them with their horrible mission, or their financially bankrupt mission. They feel that they, for me, approval of other people was such a big theme. So on some level, I was heartbroken because I felt rejected by other people. And the list goes on. There's some sad, heartbreaking story at the root. I love how you said broke, because it's true. There's some heartbreaking story at the root of our financial problems.
So do we heal that story, or do we, first of all, read the story, find out what story we're living by, and go into like forgiveness and of ourselves and step into the power that way?
Yeah, one way I find that really helps you step into your power is actually even acknowledging the story. A lot of us, we just run these stories without even realizing that they're there. Because I found, so when I did this, when I was on the verge of buying yet another foundation, right? Like, what am I doing? I just had that thought of, what am I doing? Like, I'm running off of some script that's clearly not working. What is this? And I said, well, I want to be beautiful. Well, why? Oh, well, I want to be beautiful because I want men to be attracted to me. Well, why? And then it's like a little child asking, well, what's the story here? Because, and the heartbreaking truth of the matter was, well, I've been rejected by a lot of men. Well, why? It's just going back into tracing it back to the origin of where did that story get put into your life.
And that why question goes deep. My gosh, it goes layer after layer after layer.
I know, and then when you ask yourself, but just acknowledging that, okay, so if you're buying something and you don't derive joy from it, like let me give you an example, a little more tangible. So if you've had a huge meal and yet you're ready to stuff in a big piece of chocolate cake afterwards, and you're going to be so uncomfortable and like miserable, yet you do it anyways, it's like, well, that didn't bring you joy at all. So what was the motivation for that? And so, what is that, right?
Right.
And usually we have the story in our head as we're doing it. We're like, my partner didn't pay attention to me, or I'm feeling really lonely right now, and this chocolate cake's going to help. I mean, that's the story we're playing, because usually this decision to do something that's not in our highest good, there's some kind of emotional reason that's going on at the time that we're doing it. Like, oh, I had a crappy day. I'm going to have this, a bottle of wine. Whatever that is. And so why did I have a crappy day? Well, blah, blah, blah. And just understanding that even if you say to yourself, okay, I'm choosing to emotionally eat right now. and just allowing just to saying, okay, I'm not eating because this is bringing me joy. I'm eating to try to cover pain. Or I'm buying this not because it's bringing me joy, but I'm buying this to cover up my pain and suffering.
And, it might not even change. Like, I think you're right. If you say that enough times, you actually start listening to it, because maybe you say that, like, I'm just eating this because I had a bad day and I feel like I want a treat. And if you say that and you highlight it and be honest enough about it, and then say it's not bringing me real joy, you start listening to it. I want to make sure that people can, because this is so, you have such a heart centered way of talking about money, because it's a tough one, right? Like talking about money, and you obviously heal with this, you coach with this, you help people, and we have to wait till your book actually comes out. But in the meantime, how can people get a hold of you?
So one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm giving away the first 3 chapters of my book on my website.
Okay.
And so you can kind of get an idea if you resonate with it, before you buy it. My website is jennifernoeltaylor.com, and you can go there, and if you sign up for a mailing list, you only get 1 email. You're not going to get a bunch of, unsolicited emails. You get 1 email with the contents of the first 3 chapters. You can kind of see, my writing style, and if you resonate with where I'm going with it, that's one way to get in touch with me.
I'm going to do that. So as we wrap up, everybody go to JenniferNoelTaylor.com. Get the 3 chapters, get on the list, and I bet you even those 3 chapters will really highlight a lot. So I want to thank you so much for talking with us about money, spiritual and broke. Jennifer Noel Taylor. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, we'll have you back soon. Bye, everyone.